Welcome, believers. Welcome, conspiracy theories. Welcome back to UFOs, aliens, and weird stuff. Right, so we're going to continue with sightings in the UK and placing them on the map behind me. All right, so we can see if there's a pattern forming. Right. So today I want to tell you a story of Elsie Oakensen and the apparent alien abduction that happened in 1978, right? Now, according to Elsie, not only did she witness a huge UFO with flashing lights, but she also lost 15 minutes of time. And I love these stories, all right, because they're happening. So let's tell the story. It was on the 22nd of November at around 5 p.m. when 50-year-old schoolteacher Elsie Oakensen left her school office and started making her way home to church in Stowe in Northamptonshire. Now, the journey only takes 15 minutes once she gets on the A5. And that's important to remember, okay? On this afternoon, though, things were going to get weird. And she would witness something that would probably change her life forever. Okay, so as she was on the A5 heading home, about 2 miles from her destination, she stated that she spotted a large grey object. Now, it looked like a dumbbell hovering over at the road of an altitude of roughly about 100 to 150 feet. And I'm impressed with that because I couldn't tell you, right, what sort of altitude it was hovering if I ever saw anything. Right, so as she looked on confused and a little frightened by the weird hovering object, she noticed the red and green lights on the left and right hand side. Now, obviously, at first she thought it was a plane or a helicopter, you know, something human and man-made. However, when she realised it was just sitting there over the road, silent and still, it dawned on her that this might be something altogether stranger. Now, she would describe the craft as having a smooth and plastic look to it and appeared to be the colour of old pewter. Now, I don't know if you know the colour of old pewter. I would imagine that's like a dull silver cover, you know, because I've got a beer mug of old pewter. Right, I think anyway. What's more, the object remained completely silent and contained no sign of engine or rotor blades. Always a good sign that it's not man-made if it sits there silent. Now, stopping on the A5 suddenly would have caused an accident. So she carried on driving till it was safe to turn round and take a better look. It was still there hovering directly over the late afternoon traffic. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I thought the same, right? Why didn't anyone else see it? So we'll ponder that later, all right? We'll come back to it. So it's just floating there, but she did notice that the green lights were now flashing. So when she first saw the object, it wasn't. And now she's turned around and looked again. It's got flashing green lights. So, after staring at it for a while, she started her way home. And the rest of the journey was normal, boring stuff, right? Until she was a stone throw away from her house and her car just died and coasted to a stop. So, she did manage to start it, but within seconds it had died again. I believe the same thing happened to Joyce Bowles when she got abducted in Winchester in late 1976. That story there. I mean, if you go to my story of Joyce Bowles and the Winchester abduction, her car stopped and then she tried. It did kick over and then stopped again. So, well, worth looking into anyway, right? Now, with the car died and the headlights out, she was thrown into complete darkness. Now, 5 o'clock, that's time of year, it is pitch black, right? As she sat there trying to get the car started, she noticed a light had appeared a short distance away, slightly above from the road in front of her, right? So, all right, so she can see the road in front of her. It can't be pitch black, but you get the idea, don't you? And slightly above there, there's a light, right? Then, within seconds, the light had gone. But the thing that freaked her out the most is the realisation that she was nearer to the gates of the local farm. Now, that is a considerable distance from where she had broke down. And that's common too, isn't it, right? So she's seen this light, it's gone. She's kind of dazed, looked about, and realised she's about a mile away from where she broke down. Now, as she sat there confused, another light appeared at the front of the vehicle. Then another light appeared, this time at the rear of the vehicle. So these two lights were then joined by a set appearing to her left and her right. She was basically surrounded by lights, right? The lights started flashing, but at different times. Now, she says, as if a sequence had been programmed. Now, until this point, she told herself that they were helicopters or rescue lights, because you would do anything to try and get a grasp of what's going on and make it feel normal. However, as she watched the strange display, she got the uncanny feeling that there were no ordinary lights, all right? So it's kind of dawning on her there's something afoot, something's not right. Now, Elsie wasn't sure what happened next. She would later recall she went from watching the lights flashing behind her to finding herself driving along the road heading towards her village. By the time she realised that she was missing around 20 minutes of time, she knew that something strange had taken place. And that would freak you out, wouldn't it, right? So she got home and she told John, her husband, about the weird events that had taken place. She then rushed upstairs to see if she could see anything strange in the skies from her bedroom window, right? It was then she realised she was home later that she had taken, she had lost loads and loads of time. And that she had no memory of why the journey had taken so long. So I fumbled there a little bit. So let me go back on that. So she's got home. She spoke to her husband, John. She's rushed upstairs to see if she can see anything from a better vantage point. It was then she realised that she was missing about 20 minutes. What would freak you out, wouldn't it? But a bit like the Katie Walker story, what humans have a tendency to do is try and rationalise things. So you think, my God, there's 20 minutes missing. But you can't explain it, so you just stick it in the back of your memory and you carry on your day, don't you? So the following day, she would speak about her weird experiences to her friends at work. And it was one of her colleagues that suggested, right, she might have encountered a UFO and urged her to report the incident. So after discovering a small scar on the back of her knee, she began to think her friend might be onto something and something bizarre might have happened. Something such as an alien abduction. So she's spoken to her friends and her friend had gone, mate, I think there's something weird going on there. Now, from there, the Northamptonshire Chronicle and Echo would get a wind of the experience and would ultimately run a story on it. This would lead to a UFO organisation contacting Elsie with a view to investigating her case. It was during one of these conversations that it was suggested to Elsie to undergo hypnotic regression in order to recall the events of the evening, something she would agree to. And the revelations would be remarkable, to say the least, right? And I have kind of read this, and it's hard to understand, so I'll read it to you slowly, because she's trying to make, as far as I can make out, she's trying to rationalise what she's seeing. And because, obviously, she's in a spaceship, say, for instance, a UFO, it's hard for her to do it. But I will read you what she says, right? So the regression session took place around 9 months after the event of the strange evening in November 1978. Now, she was quickly taken back to where her car stalled on the quiet country road. And as I say, in November, in England, right, at 5 o'clock, it is very dark and very cold, right? Now, she recalled that in the moment following her car stalling, she began to feel extremely hot. Once more, her head began to ache intensively, as if a band had been tightened around her head. This pressure would continue with any sign of let up, right? Then a brilliant white light shone into her eyes, a light she described as a pure white light. Now, she recalled that circles of bright light radiated from this initial light. All the while, she could feel her temperature increasing and her head continue to throb. And even of more concern, she said, she could no longer feel her legs. Then, now this is where it gets weird, right? Then she recalled that two shapes materialised, elaborating that the first is a long, thin shape, which appeared to her left-hand side momentarily before disappearing. She would describe the second as more rectangular, which appeared on her right side. Now, following this, the two shapes then appeared together. There was, she would state, a silver glow that outlined both the shapes, which were grey, smooth, rounded, and ghost-like. All right, so that's her description. Now, it's at this point Elsie began to become visibly distressed, and so the session was brought to an early end. And that is the end of Elsie's story. All right, that's how the Elsie story ends. Now, what do you think of the Elsie Oakensen, the Elsie Oakensen story? What do you think? All right, so she obviously saw something strange. It obviously spotted her. Now, I said, didn't I, that why didn't anyone else see it? And it is possible that they did. But when you go through life, you're doing your humdrum sort of thing. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you can get to a point where you've got to go and you don't remember getting there? You know, you are so, I don't know what you're so used to doing it. You go to the same place every day. You come home to the same place every day. And if you've ever noticed that sometimes when you get there, because you're thinking of other stuff, you are concentrating on the road, but your mind's not quite there. We've all done it, haven't we? And I reckon that's why a lot of people didn't see what Elsie saw. And also, as well, some people might have done and thought, my God, what is that? And then they've drove past and they thought, well, that's it, it's gone now. I don't know, maybe it was a billboard, maybe it was a blimp, maybe it was a hot air balloon, and then they just forget about it. So this was Elsie Oakensen's story. Abduction. She went under hypnosis, got distressed. So I don't know much more about it. I do know, bless her, because she was 50 then in 1978, that she has now passed away. So we will never know any more about the story. All right, so that happened in Northamptonshire, and I will stick it on my map, and we'll put it there so we can look at it next week or something. So the map is filling up. So let me tell you then a few more stories. Okay, so they're not big stories. They haven't been, in like UFO magazines or in the news. They're not on Ancient Aliens. They're not on UFO Files. They're not on UFO Hunters. But it is important, right, that we do tell the story. So this story is in the book Haunted Skies, the Encyclopedia of British UFOs, Volume 7. All right, and I might try and get that if I can, because there are other things connected to this story. It says in the book Haunted Skies, the Encyclopedia of British UFOs, Volume 7, John Hanson and Dawn Holloway relay several other sightings that happened around the same time in the same region. For example, according to Georgina Lara, she and three other women were heading towards Preston Capes in Northampton around the same time on the same evening and witnessed a beam of light pierce the clouds towards the ground. Furthermore, she recorded that at the same time the engine of the car then started to splutter. So as the four women watched the strange aerial display, they could see there were two lights, one red and one green. And of more concerns, these lights appeared to be following their car. Then for no reason, they simply disappeared. Now that happened on the same time and in the same area as Elsie's. So that is a good corroborating information, that is. Now it says, perhaps of most interest is what Georgina informed the aforementioned authors of the event following the sighting. She said although she didn't experience any missing time and didn't suspect she was abducted on the night of the sighting, she did notice she had a newfound awareness involving the ability to heal, which was coupled with an autistic or an art sorry, not autistic, that's terrible, isn't it? An artistic flair. She questioned whether this could be a coincidence or not, but it is something that is offered by many others who have had such close encounters. Or of even more interest was the apparent fact it had on one of her children, her son. She would often have precognitions about things that are going to happen, which invariably do. I find that fascinating, right? Now, although the sighting of Georgina Laura occurred on the same night and was almost certainly the same objects reported by Elsie, there were several other sightings unearthed by Hanson and Holloway over the weeks that followed. And it's some of the sightings that we will turn to our attention next week, gang. We will talk about that next week. So we will continue this theme and see what other sightings were around at the time. All right, so like I say, I do like to cover less unknown incidents that occurred around the 70s, because even though, like I say, they're not important to people like UFO Magazine and stuff like that, they do paint a picture. Right, so June the 21st, 1977, between Salford and Bury. All right, Salford and Bury. Where is it? Where is it? Salford and Bury. There. Look, Salford and Bury. On this date, a 10-metre long silver cigar-shaped object followed two people riding on a motorcycle between Salford and Bury up there. It replicated all of their turns and was completely silent. It finally flew off behind a house. So Salford, that's there, right? Another one, 1977 in Essex, England, right? Essex, England. Where is that then? Right, I haven't put that one up there for some reason, but Essex, a 24-year-old man named Stevens was driving when his car lost power from 50 to 35 miles an hour, despite applying full throttle. Now, in those days, right, you did not have engine management. You had points and condenser in 1977. There was no reason to lose power. But he says two orange and red oval lights were seen hovering nearby at the time at a distance of about 300 to 400 yards. So, an Essex one. Now, obviously, Essex is round this area, right? So that's down by, that's sort of there, Essex, right? So, another one in Lewis Brighton. And Lewis Brighton is there, right on the coast. So, Lewis Brighton. This was at 5:20 p.m. The policewoman noticed a curious silent object estimated to be as large as a 4-inch plate held at arm's length, all right? So at no more than 300 feet altitude. A conventional plane was immediately ruled out by the witness, who had been fully trained in aircraft recognition in the Royal Observatory Corps. She felt no fear and on impulse waved at the object, which then came closer. It seemed to be a light greenish grey metal with a moderately reflective surface. On top of the dome protruded a blue-green light, and underneath the object could be seen a very dense black circular section. As its closest approach to the object was estimated to be no more than 50 feet away. All right, so I didn't quite get that one, right? So it's a policewoman, about a 4-inch plate at arm's length. So we do know that even though she's very observant, she knows her aircrafts. So that could be further away or closer. But that's a weird sighting, isn't it, right? And that was in Brighton in 1977. So cases of UFO sightings are generally considered to be more believable if they are witnessed by people in position of authority, like, say, the police. and believers in UFOs were given a boon in August 1972 when a UFO was spotted by a police officer over Acton, West London. All right, so look, let's leave that there for the minute, though. All right, so what do you think, though? What do you think about the Elsie incident? I'm going to buy it. Of course, I'm going to buy it. I always do. But that is another one to stick up on our map, isn't it? Right, so this was UFOs, aliens, and weird stuff. And I will start talking about weird stuff. I'm obsessed with UFOs at the moment because there's so much information out there. But we do want to cover weirder stuff. You know, ghosts, poltergeists, you know, that sort of stuff. We're not just going to be talking about UFOs. So please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would be fantastic. I would really appreciate that. Ding that notification bell if you can. And I will catch you on the next one. Thanks very much.